Greens powder culture has turned into a full-blown wellness identity, a daily ritual where people film themselves adding a scoop of green dust to water and claiming it transformed their gut, skin, mood, and even their productivity. What started as a niche supplement category is now marketed as an essential health tool, especially to people who feel guilty for not eating enough vegetables. But the more you dig into the hype, the more it becomes clear that these powders are often overpriced, overpromised, and oversold, with benefits far less dramatic than the glowing testimonials imply. The first issue is the mismatch between marketing and reality. Greens powders are typically made from dried and powdered vegetables, algae, herbs, and sometimes probiotics or digestive enzymes. But drying and processing plant material inevitably strips away much of what makes whole vegetables valuable. Water-soluble vitamins like vitamin C degrade easily. Fiber, one of the most important elements for digestion and gut health, is dramatically reduced. Phytonutrients break down under heat and oxygen. Yet brands still advertise these powders as nutrient powerhouses, even when lab analyses show their vitamin and mineral content is modest at best. In many cases, you're paying for a product that gives you a fraction of what a bowl of actual vegetables would provide. The gut health claims are even more questionable. Many powders advertise that they detoxify, rebalance the microbiome, or improve digestion, but these promises often lean on vague language rather than strong scientific evidence. Some powders include probiotics, but the strains are not always clinically validated, the doses are inconsistent, and many bacteria do not survive processing or shelf storage. Some contain digestive enzymes, but for most people, especially those without diagnosed digestive disorders, extra enzymes are unnecessary and can even cause symptoms like gas and bloating when taken habitually. The powders that rely on wheatgrass, spirulina, or chlorella lean heavily on the idea of detox, but your liver and kidneys already handle detoxification efficiently, and no powdered plant can meaningfully accelerate that process. There's also a psychological trap embedded in daily greens powder routines. Because the drink tastes healthy, looks healthy, and is marketed as a replacement for vegetables, people start to believe they're covering all their nutritional bases with a scoop. That can create a placebo effect. Yes, a real sense of improvement, but often driven by expectation rather than biology. The ritual itself feels virtuous. It gives people a sense of control. But the danger is that the ritual replaces actual dietary changes. Someone might feel proud of taking their greens powder every morning, yet still go through a day eating few real vegetables, not realizing they are short on fiber, antioxidants, and plant diversity, nutrients that powders simply cannot replicate. Some powders even introduce risks that whole vegetables never would. Because they're concentrated, they can contain high levels of certain compounds, iodine from kelp, for example, that can disrupt thyroid function if consumed daily in large amounts. Heavy metal contamination has been found in cheaper spirulina and chlorella products, and not all brands test rigorously for purity. The proprietary blends listed on labels often hide the fact that many powders contain tiny amounts of expensive ingredients, just enough to list them on the label, but not enough to deliver any meaningful effect. People assume they're drinking a therapeutic dose of dozens of vegetables, when in truth they might be getting less nutrition than a basic salad. Another overlooked concern is how easily greens powders can become a crutch for teens and young adults who already struggle with inconsistent eating habits. Instead of learning to incorporate vegetables into meals, they rely on flavored powder mixed with water, believing it counts as their greens. That mindset can delay the development of real dietary skills and contribute to long-term nutrient gaps. And because many powders contain added sweeteners, stimulants, or ingredients that interact with medications, younger consumers may be exposing themselves to unnecessary risks without realizing it. When you compare greens powders to whole vegetables, the difference is stark. Whole vegetables offer fiber that fuels beneficial gut bacteria, supports digestion, and stabilizes blood sugar. They provide water content that supports hydration. They contain a wide spectrum of phytonutrients that interact synergistically in ways powders cannot replicate. Chewing them stimulates digestive enzymes and satiety signals that powdered drinks simply bypass. The human body evolved to process food, not concentrated extracts that bypass many natural regulatory pathways. Yet the culture around greens powders encourages the opposite mindset, the belief that whole foods are optional and that health can be condensed into a scoop. That belief is incredibly convenient for supplement companies and incredibly misleading for consumers. There are situations where greens powders can be helpful: people traveling frequently, people with limited access to fresh produce, or individuals with specific medical needs. But for the majority of users, the explosion of greens powder culture is less about meeting a nutritional need and more about responding to the pressures and anxieties created by wellness marketing. The hard truth is that daily super greens are not essential, and for many people, they offer little more than an expensive illusion of health. Whole vegetables still outperform powders in almost every measurable way, from nutrient content to gut support to long-term benefits. And relying on a product instead of building real dietary habits can create more problems than it solves. When you strip away the branding, the lifestyle aesthetic, and the promise of effortless wellness, greens powders are just supplements, tools with limited situational value, not daily necessities. What they cannot replace is the irreplaceable complexity of real food. And when a wellness trend convinces people otherwise, it becomes less a harmless habit and more a potentially harmful distraction from the simple, evidence-based practices that truly support health.